Hi YouTube, I thought I would make a quick video about ergonomic mechanical keyboards. I've just purchased two and thought I would share my observations and impressions of them and kind of what led me to purchase these and what I would recommend. So just for a little bit of background, about 8 years ago or so, my daily driver was the Microsoft Natural Ergonomic keyboard, that big swoopy one that has a keyboard layout similar to this with a split and a curved kind of hump. And an integrated palm rest, and it's kind of the standard for ergonomic keyboards and has been for a long time, but Microsoft no longer makes keyboards like that, and so and they never made any that were mechanical, and so that's kind of why I want to make this video for those who've used those keyboards in the past and would like to have something similar that they can use going forward. So anyway, 7 years ago or so, I discovered mechanical keyboards and switched to the Master MasterKeys Pro something or other. It has an integrated keypad. It's a full-size keyboard. This one has Cherry MX brown switches, and this has been my daily driver for the past 7 years or so. So obviously I went away from the ergonomic keyboards in favor of getting the mechanical kind of feel, because it's a much nicer feeling than the membrane keys that were on the Microsoft keyboard and most others. So this has been my daily driver, like I said, and it's been a good keyboard. It's not too fancy. It does have a white backlight, some programmable macros, etc. But generally speaking, it's a pretty vanilla keyboard, which was what I wanted. It feels pretty good. Has nice high quality switches. I'll give you a little sound test here. A little tinny or noisy sounding. The keys don't have the best sound and they're a little wiggly, but still pretty good feeling keyboard. About a year ago though, it started having some intermittent issues that I think are software related, surprisingly. So I would have some keys like the function key, the backspace key, the L key start to be intermittently responsive, and sometimes I'd have to push them extra hard to get them to engage. And I thought it was a switch problem, but when I tested the switches with the voltmeter, they were actuating triggering just fine. And it ultimately would go away if I did a software reset or unplugged the keyboard for a while and then used it again. So it seems like it was software related. It wasn't bad enough to where I couldn't use the keyboard, but it was getting annoying. And so I started to research kind of what is the current state of mechanical keyboards in the 7 or so years since I had this one, and found that there are some ergonomic options, and so I decided to try a couple. Really quick before I talk about the ergonomic ones though, I did want to note that around the same time I bought this, I also purchased this Monoprice keyboard with Otemu brown switches, and just for a comparison to kind of a Cherry MX switch, the Otemus really have a much worse, dirtier feel. They don't sound bad, but they just feel a little bit rougher, like they have like grit or something in this switch itself. So it definitely has a cheaper feel, not as nice. I bought this mainly as a secondary keyboard that I used at home when I was working at the office. This was my office keyboard that I used every day. This was the one I used less often. Now I work from home, so I only need one daily driver. All right, so let's talk about the mechanical keyboard, or the ergonomic keyboards that I purchased. So the first thing to note about them is that unlike these keyboards, which have the full number pad, I went with 10 keyless keyboards on these. And there's a couple of different layouts here. So this keyboard, which is the Perixx Periboard 335, is basically a traditional keyboard layout, like the Microsoft one with the split and the curve, but they haven't really rearranged the keys in any unique ways. You still have the number pad in the same place. You still have all these keys in basically the same place. They haven't been too creative with messing with kind of the established standard for keys, and I like that, with one exception, which I'll talk about. But I went without the number pad, not because I don't use the number pad, but because I recognize that when you go ergonomic, whereas with this keyboard, I would tend to type with my arms a little offset. So like this would be centered on my body, and then I'd come over here to touch the mouse. With this keyboard, with ergonomic keyboards, you really need to be more centered on it. The whole point of this is that it kicks your arms out a little bit, which is a more natural position, but doing that over here just kind of defeats the purpose of the ergonomics. So you really want to be centered on the keyboard. And if you do that and you have a number pad extending out to here, your mouse is going to now be all the way over here. So you're going to be reaching quite far for that mouse. So I decided to go with a 10 keyless keyboard and instead bought this dedicated Kisnt mechanical little number pad. I bought this one in particular because, again, it's mechanical, but it also has the same kind of traditional key layout as a normal full-size keyboard. So you can see that these are the same number pad, same number keys in the same locations with the same sizes. A lot of these number pads will have like a small plus sign and another key over here, which if you're going for something that's really natural feeling and conforms to your muscle memory, you want to go with something that sticks to the standard, and this one does. It doesn't have any extra frills. It does have a shortcut for launching the calculator, which is cool. But aside from that, it's very basic. It does have Utemu keys, which is not the best, like I mentioned, but these actually feel better than my old one. And for a number pad, I don't really have a strong preference of the switch. So in any case, I thought this was a good purchase. I'll talk a little bit about, has it been satisfactory to have a secondary number pad? Short answer is, for me, who doesn't do a lot of data entry, it's fine. It is a reach. I still have, it's a weird, awkward position. It's far away from everything else. So if I'm going back and forth between direction pads and the number pad, it's definitely not as convenient as it was before. So it's not, it's not as nice, obviously, when you're using the number pad to have it over there. Obviously, I could put it here, and then it would be basically the same location that I'm used to. But yeah, it hasn't been a deal breaker because I don't use it all the time. If you're always in Excel, you're always typing in numbers, you might want to just deal with the extra extension of the arm for the mouse and have it integrated. Or again, just put it over here. Some people also recommend putting them on the left. Obviously, you have to get used to number typing with your left hand then, but that way you kind of end up keeping the keyboard in a good position with a good mouse, and you have a very convenient reach to the keys. And I might try to get used to that as well. That really does, I think, once you get used to it, I think that would be kind of the best of all worlds. Okay, let's talk about these keyboards. So I mentioned this is the Perixx Periboard 335. This is a pretty affordable keyboard. I bought this for just $65. They do have a full-size option, but like mentioned, I would recommend the shorter one if you're going ergonomic. And again, it is the closest, I think, mechanical keyboard you can really find to the Microsoft ergonomic keyboards. But it has a few kind of unique aspects. So the first one is that it is a low-profile mechanical keyboard. So these are mechanical brown keys in there, but it doesn't have quite the same, feel as a full-sized, full-depth keyboard. It also has quite a cheap feel. So it sounds okay, but a little chintzy. But it really doesn't feel very high quality. The keycaps are obviously not very high quality. There'd be ABS. You can already see some of the screen printing is rubbing off. There's no backlight. There's no gaskets. There's nothing special about this. It is mechanical, but it is absolutely bare bones otherwise, and not very high quality feeling. And so if you're coming from a decently quality mechanical keyboard, this is going to feel like a downgrade, I think. Coming from a 7-year-old keyboard, this still feels like a downgrade. If you're coming from a modern keyboard with all the bells and whistles that I'll talk about with this one, it's going to definitely feel like a step down. So if you're already an ergonomic keyboard user, a mechanical keyboard user, coming to this may not be the best for you unless you're really having some pain issues and you really need the ergonomic layout, in which case this may be your best bet. If you're coming from a Microsoft Natural ergonomic keyboard, this is going to feel like an upgrade because the mechanical keys are going to feel better, they're going to sound better, and I feel like it is a step up from that. So I think it's a great choice if that's what you're coming from and if ergonomics are your main priority. It has the little risers on the back to slant it forward. It has that slope. It has the split key layout. It has the integrated palm rest. It has basically everything you'd be looking for. So it really is a good option if ergonomics is your priority and you're not used to the kind of the nice feel of a mechanical keyboard. It's going to feel like a step up for you. How long it's going to last, how long the keys are going to still be readable, I think that remains to be seen, but I don't have great hopes for that. Couple negatives I will point out. So first, a lot of the reviewers will point out the fact that the integrated palm rest is short and has a sharp edge. So if you have larger hands, that might be a discomfort, a problem. I don't find it too problematic. I can feel the edge, but it's not too bad. I'm not putting that much weight back there, and so I haven't found that to be a problem. I actually think it's a perfectly reasonable palm rest for me. But I have relatively small hands for a guy. If you're a larger-handed person, that may be an issue. The biggest frustration I have with this keyboard is where they put the function key. So normally you have the Control, Windows, and Alt key right here, all the same size. This one splits the Windows key with the function key. And so now if you're doing shortcuts like Windows E, which I used to be able to do like that, now I have to twist my hand more to do that motion, which doesn't feel natural. And I'm always hitting the function key instead of the Windows key. I also don't like the function key being over here just on its own, because one of the, if you're doing a shortcut like volume up and down, you now need to do it with two hands, whereas before the function key was here and I could do that with one hand. So that's a step backwards, and I really don't like the way they did that. They have this context menu button over here that I would never use. I wish they would have made that the function key like Cooler Master did, and not mess with the kind of traditional layout, which otherwise they do a good job of sticking to. So that's probably my biggest frustration. That plus the palm rest for some people might be challenges with this keyboard. But again, for $65 and given the ergonomic design, I do think it's a good choice. All right, now let's talk about something completely different. This is the Keychron Q10 mechanical keyboard with the Alice ergonomic layout. This is in a completely different league from this keyboard, and even what was a pretty good keyboard at the time, my Cooler Master. This thing is a brick. I almost wonder if it has weights inside because it is so heavy, but it's a solid metal constructed case, and it has basically all the bells and whistles that you would expect in kind of a modern high-end mechanical keyboard. It has RGB backlights. It has gaskets under the switches. It has Gateron Pro brown switches on this one. They feel great. They sound great. The keycaps have just a much more high quality kind of connection feel. They don't move around as much, so you can't really hear them as much when you do this. I really, really love the quality of the switches, and the keycaps and everything is great. So very happy with that, very happy with the construction. I also like the design, the layout, though it is very interesting. Looking at this compared to a traditional keyboard, you can tell right away that it's just kind of weird. It has these strange gaps in places. It's got kind of this weird curve, how these are in a line, and then it cuts off to the A is on a different kind of plane. You've got the macro keys over here. You've got the direction pad kind of moved down here. You've got the delete key moved up, and then these keys are kind of scrunched around. In general, it's like, a good job of kind of getting rid of some of the keys that you don't normally use in the traditional layout, making a more efficient use of space by getting the number pad down here. But there's enough differences that your muscle memory, when doing sort of out of the ordinary things like number pad and hitting the enter key and coming from over here and doing a Windows combo or a Control X or whatever, those kind of common things that you might be doing, in situations where you're not in the middle of typing and your hands aren't already placed, finding those kind of locations with muscle memory is harder. I'm used to the Control key being the most left key down here, and instead it's a macro button. So that's one thing I still do wrong a lot after using this for a week, is when I want to do Control X or something, I keep doing the macro button and then getting it wrong. So I'm going to have to learn the layout. The layout is enough different that it's not as easy of a translation from a traditional keyboard. But I do think it's well thought out. I like the fact that the number pad is where it is. It saves some space on the right. And often you're going from number pad to enter. That's a pretty common combo. And here the enter is much more convenient than it is on the traditional layout. I like the fact that they kept the Windows key where it normally is. The function key is in a weird location. They split the spacebar and put the function key in here. But I like that location because you can do one-handed combos for basically everything, because you can reach everything from the center. It has an extra B button, which is weird. But like in general, it's a well thought out layout that makes a better use of space, prioritizes the keys you actually use, and in general, I think the locations are all pretty good. Again, I don't mind the macro keys, I just have to get used to that. The main thing I don't really love is the delete key being up here. It does make it more of a reach, and that's a key I hit fairly often. So that's maybe the one that I kind of don't love, where they decided to put that one. But other than that, I actually think it's a pretty smart layout. And I've not had too much trouble getting used to it, with the exception of some things like the control combos. Coming from this keyboard to then this keyboard to then this keyboard, the transition from this to this was very, very easy. I didn't really struggle at all with that transition. It took me a little longer to get used to this one, but to be honest, from day one, I was able to type normally with this very quickly. It's really those kind of other sort of keystrokes that I'm finding I'm still getting used to. So despite how weird it looks, it actually is a pretty easy translation from a standard keyboard. One other thing I love about this keyboard is the integrated volume control. That's super nice. So I mentioned how I did the volume combo all the time. Now it's a moot point. I have this analog knob, which you can push to mute, which is really spiffy. So all in all, I really am impressed with this keyboard. You know, if ergonomics are your top priority, it's not as good. It doesn't have the forward slant. In fact, it doesn't have any adjustable height. It has a kind of built-in slope that's not adjustable unless you put something under it. Whereas this one has, you know, the adjustable height. It has the tenting, I guess you'd call it, this slope, which this one does not have. But if you just want to get your arms into a more natural position, you want to stave off some pain, but you're maybe not experiencing it yet, I think this is a good sort of middle ground for someone who still wants a high quality mechanical keyboard, but wants something a bit more ergonomic than the traditional layout. So I would highly recommend this one. Now, these are in different price categories. I got this one on sale actually for $100, which I think is a steal for this. If I think it's normally at least $150, depending on the color, maybe even $200. They have a wireless option. Something this heavy, I don't know why you would need it to be wireless. I prefer to just not have the added complication and potential obsolescence that comes with a battery. So personally, I find the fact that it's wired to be a plus. Keychron also has other Alice layout mechanical keyboards with, I think, the same switches and everything, just maybe fewer of the bells and whistles, with a plastic body, etc., for less money. So still not as cheap as $65, I don't think, but you can get pretty close to this in price by going with one of the lower end Keychron options. And it's going to have the same layout. Most of the things I said are going to be applicable to that. It just won't have as much of the kind of luxury feel or the build quality, or maybe this volume knob, that kind of thing. So yeah, in conclusion, I would say both are recommended keyboards, both are great, but they do fit very different, I think, customers, both of whom are looking for ergonomic mechanical options. This is good for you if ergonomics are your top priority and you're not used to high quality mechanical keyboards. This is going to be a good option, and it's quite affordable. If you are already used to mechanical keyboards and you want an upgrade, this feels like a massive upgrade to me over this keyboard, which is already pretty good. Then this is a great option, especially if you're okay with it not being like the most optimal, kind of as good of an ergonomic keyboard as you can get from a design standpoint. I still think it's a pretty significant step up. I think you will need a palm rest. I have this one which has like beans inside, which is good for this kind of curved design. So this has worked out pretty well for me. So yeah, I think this is a great keyboard. Final thing I'll just note is, as I mentioned before, the number pad reach here was a little awkward, especially because this is pretty tall compared to this one. And so I kind of have to like reach down now to type. So I might need to just start getting used to doing it on the left and just get used to that. So I'll leave you with a few more typing sounds on this guy, and I'll switch over to this as well just so you can get that comparison. But again, both good keyboards, just I think targeting a different type of customer. And so depending on what you are, I don't think you can go too wrong with either one. But yeah, this is the one. This is definitely my favorite of the two, and the one I plan to use as a daily driver. And I'll hang on to this just because it is unique. And if I do start to have carpal tunnel issues or something, then I might try this one out. But for now, I don't have those issues. And again, this one is just a joy to type on. So with that, I'll leave you with some typing. All right, and then we'll switch over to this one. Give me a second. This guy is a beast. All right, hope that was a helpful video. Happy typing.